The Hornets pick up a loss in Naptown last night. Only a handful of games left to go. We'll, of course, go through a mock draft and give you an update on LaMelo Ball's injury. All today, Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. There's Doug Branson, Dancing Doug. I know it's going to be a good show when he's dancing. EveryHornetsBoxScore.com. Also listen to him on Locked On NBA with Matt Moore and Hayes. I'm Walker Mayo. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Thanks to FanDuel, as always. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And finally, we have a newsletter, a Locked On Hornets newsletter, introducing the Locked On Hornets newsletter, which is your one-stop for Ultimate Team and League coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now at LockedOnDaily.com. The Hornets, they lose. They lose to the Pacers last night, 119 to 105. Shout out to Terrence Oglesby on the call, by the way, filling in for Del Curry. I immediately go to the way that he described this game in the fourth quarter. He said, well, this game was close for about 44 minutes. It was a good game. That was the
That's
story.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. 44 of the 48 minutes. This was a good game. Competitive loss. Was this an ethical loss, Doug? Would you characterize it as that?
I think so. They kept it close for a little bit in stretches. David Walker in the Every Hornets box score noted that Rick Carlisle, every time the Hornets made a push, Rick Carlisle would call timeout, get everybody over there and be like, hey, reminder, that's an NBA basketball team. I know it doesn't look like one, but it's an NBA basketball team, and we should probably continue to win games as we're battling for seeding. And then they would go out there and make a big run. And so, yeah, I mean, ethical loss. Everybody played hard. You know, I think the story of this game and the past couple of games has been one of you've got two different Hornets teams playing together right now. You've got one team of young players who are playing for, their futures, their careers, and they are playing super hard, maybe not super effective, maybe not executing particularly well, but they're playing super hard. And then you have, I think, some veterans who are sort of in babysitter mode. It's not that they're not playing hard. It's just whatever you have to summon as an NBA veteran to get to that level of like, okay, this is a competitive basketball game. We're fighting for something, and we're, whatever that thing is, they're not summoning it. I look at Nurkic, I look at Miles Bridges, and I just see guys out there trying to do the best they can to get through the remainder of this season, and I don't punish them for that because I'm totally there. I'm the same way. I'm just trying to get through this season at this point.
This is an ethical pod right now. I don't know. This is all it is. We're just trying to get through the end of the season as well. Yeah, Miles, it's funny. They had such a tight minutes restriction on Miles for this game, who we weren't sure was going to suit up for the tanking of it all. But he played 6 minutes a quarter, baby. I mean, you'd put him in at the beginning of the quarter, and then you take him out right around that 6-5 minute mark, and then you let the youngins play the rest of it. And that includes the fourth quarter when I guess the Hornets were still in it, but the Miles Bridges just came out, doesn't matter, ethical loss, and you let everybody else end that game for him.
And Miles crushed. 18 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists on 70% shooting. Hit 2 of 3 of his three-pointers, 18.6 game score. That led everyone on the team. And in a game in which they turned the basketball over, I think conservatively 1,000 times, he only had 1 turnover. I mean, that was the other story of this game. They lost. I think they had 18 turnovers. They lost because they kept turning the basketball over. And Indiana, I'd put them in like the top 3 of teams that you just do not want to turn the basketball over because they already want to play fast. Like they just, it doesn't matter. Make, miss, whatever, after timeout, it doesn't matter. They just play fast all the time. And so if you give them opportunities when you turn the basketball over, particularly live ball, you give them opportunities to run and they are going to absolutely smoke you. And that's what happened.
Right, yeah. Indiana's a good basketball team. They just made the Eastern Conference Finals last year. You might be smart to put some money on them to get to the Eastern Conference Finals this year, honestly. I mean, with New York not beating good teams, being a good team, but not beating good teams, Boston is going to get there. So if you have another representative of the Eastern Conference that you feel the best about, it can't be Milwaukee. I don't know if it's New York again because of just the lack of wins that they have against playoff opponents. Cleveland is the one, right? Like Cleveland is the other one that you would feel really good about. So I think the smart money would still probably be on the Cavs and the Celtics, but Pacers right there, man. It'd be interesting to see what they'll do.
Oh, well, you're gonna have to wait for my thoughts on that for Locked On NBA. You're not getting that for free. You got to watch that show. But I will say just real quickly that the Hornets, when they were playing somewhat meaningful basketball early in the season, which is really the last time they played the Pacers, they got 2 on the Pacers in a period in which the Pacers weren't fully formed yet. They were still sort of punch drunk to start the season, and the Hornets got wins against them. So I think they came into this one with just a little bit of extra sauce, knowing that the Hornets were in a weakened state, wanting to just put the hammer down towards the end of the game.
Yeah, it was a bad start for Indiana. We were having terrible Tyrese Halliburton conversations, and then he's turned it around to the point where he'll get some All-NBA votes. I don't think he'll get that third team spot, but he'll get All-NBA votes for the way that he's been playing recently. Yeah, they're a good basketball team. You mentioned a couple of things here real quickly before we move on to the second segment. You mentioned turnovers. Mark Williams turning the ball over way too much in the first quarter. That was frustrating. Yeah. 3 turnovers in the first, and then settled down offensively, had 1 other turnover the rest of the way. But in the first quarter, he's just coughing it up at a pace you can't keep up with and actually win. Pace, pun intended there. Other storylines here. You have Nurkic coming in off of the bench, as you mentioned, the 13 points for him, the 5 rebounds. Thought he gave him good minutes. Moussa Diabaté not playing much, but Diabaté continues to give you the best bang for your buck. He is the best bargain player that you have on the team. When you throw him in there, he's going to make a whole bunch of stuff happen. And we're only going to play him for 15 minutes. But he's going to be a winning player. He's going to go grab rebounds. He's going to go dunk it. He's going to run the floor, and then you're going to bring him out. I'm not kidding, Doug. I'm not kidding. I think Charles Lee doesn't play Moussa that much more because there is a little bit of tanking to it. I think Moussa goes a little too hard in the paint for a tanking team right now, and you can only play him 15 minutes. I actually, with Mark is still – like I think the last couple of games for 2.5, 3 weeks, I thought his activity was awesome. I think we've taken a step down. I don't think we've seen him revert back to right before the trade deadline or right after the trade deadline. I don't think that. I don't think he's been as active as he was in that 2-3 week stretch where it was, yes, this is what I'm talking about, baby. Hell yeah. There were times where Moussa is just out sprinting Mark down the floor and competing on some of these transition defensive possessions. But yeah, the big man stuff, Mark offensively has still looked very good, which is awesome to see, by the way. Like, I'm glad his confidence is clearly there offensively, and he's been an efficient player recently.
Yeah, his activity. We've used that word a lot with Mark Williams, both when he was looking low activity, we pointed it out, and now he's looking high activity. I think he had half of his points were on second chance opportunities. He is working the offensive boards, and I thought he was working the defensive boards as well. I thought some of his teammates let him down on a few of the offensive rebounding opportunities for Indiana. So his activity has gone up, and that's great. And so the question is for him next season, can the execution match the activity? I thought he got sped up in this game. A lot of those turnovers coming via just, I think, Indiana, both being aggressive defensively, but also just speeding the game up. So can his execution match his activity? That's a big question for him. Although he did execute a very exciting play in this game,
awesome.
Fourth quarter.
God almighty.
They only had 0.2 on the clock. So all you have is a tip in, and they take their time on the inbounds. But Mark, up against Miles Turner, just points up in the air, says, throw it up, baby. I got it. And he smacks it, tips it in. Eric Collins went nuts. I went nuts because it doesn't happen very often. I remember I think Sacramento got a game winner on it one time. It was insane, that type of play. But it doesn't happen many times. So those are always fun to watch.
Well, I mean, the most famous one, I believe, ever is the Valley-oop when Phoenix wins in a playoff game, and it's DeAndre Ayton, and that was in the Western Conference playoffs. I forget against who. I think
maybe it was
the
against
Western
Sacramento. I have a vision of Sacramento being involved in that type of play, so maybe it was against Sacramento.
By the way, that play, I believe, designed by great Hornet Jay Triano, an assistant coach, the Valley-oop designed by that. But no, you're right, Mark Williams, that play was excellent. You know, sometimes we have fun tweets in our head, and we go to Twitter, and we type it out, and we read it, and we show our significant other, and then we adjust it, and then we eventually say, nope, I'm not going to put it out there. Usually, I just go ahead and press send. But I wrote Indianapolis, and then I deleted it. I deleted it. I put in Tap Down and Naptown. No, I deleted it. Didn't feel like there was a moment. Don't feel like it was worthy of a tweet or a nickname, but it was close because the play is so cool and rare, but it comes in the third quarter of a loss. So I left it alone, but I thought about it.
So I'm watching the Valley-oop now, the DeAndre Ayton one. It was against the Clippers for the win. And in the Western Conference Finals, this is the year the Phoenix went to the finals. And it's a very similar play design as what the Hornets did. You had Seth Curry playing the Devin Booker role here, the guard down in the paint that's holding onto his own guy. And then as DeAndre Ayton comes over, he breaks off and screens Ayton's guy and frees him up. That happened, but then the play sort of froze right there because I think Miles Turner adjusted to it. And so then you just had this moment where he was like, okay, throw it up. I got it. It was a little bit more of an awkward, which is great. You know, the Hornets right now, just a very awkward team for all of the reasons we've discussed so far.
No, that play was fantastic, though. 2/10, like not even, you didn't even have the 3/10 rule. You had to work with something a little less than that.
Mark took a three. Another one. It got blocked.
Yeah. He took one. He took one. I did not anticipate that. Miles is good. Miles Turner is very, very good at what he does.
Moussa, the only Hornet that did not attempt a three. I don't know if we've had a game this season where every single Hornet attempted a three, but I'd like to celebrate it next time it happens, so just keep an eye on that. I'll celebrate it with a big dub hat if we have every single Charlotte Hornet on the I can't imagine that it's happened because it would probably require Mark to take a three or Moussa to take a three. So I don't think that it's happened. But if it does happen next season, I want to celebrate it because it's going to be a signal, a small signal that the Hornets are moving in the right direction.
Baby steps. Mark Williams did make a jumper in this game, though. So there was a jumper that he actually made, and then there was a three-pointer that got blocked. A couple more segments to go. Not one more. A couple more segments to go. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't rush it, baby.
Bees everywhere!
The first quarter, I got sped up and turned it over. We have a few more things to get to. We have an update on LaMelo Ball after his procedures on his wrist and his ankle. What's the timeline for LaMelo to return to full basketball activity? We'll let you know on the other side. Coming up next, LOH. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the NCAA tournament. It's here. It's fantastic. FanDuel is giving you the chances to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, even who's cutting down the nets. Maybe no Cinderella stories this year, but FanDuel next year, that's when you can get in on the Cinderella stories. You could pick your favorites. You could stay in on the action with tournament games happening almost every day, and then it's easy and fast once you do get in on some of these tournament games. The FanDuel app is simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Well, we have an update after Shams reported last Friday that LaMelo would be undergoing season-ending procedures, not surgery, but multiple season-ending procedures on his wrist.
It's different, okay? You're not a doctor. You don't know.
I don't. You're right about that. Wrist and ankle procedures. There's an update on that coming in just last night. The Charlotte Hornets announced today that LaMelo underwent arthroscopic surgery on his right ankle, right wrist at the hospital for special surgery in New York. Well, can you undergo procedures?
No, it's a hospital special procedure. Read it again.
Okay. Can you undergo a procedure at the hospital for special surgery in New York. I don't know. But Ball is expected to make a full recovery and return to full basketball activity within 4 to 6 weeks. Additional updates on his status will be provided as appropriate. All things considered, good news that it's not going to be lingering into the offseason, or at least we hope not. The initial diagnosis is that he's going to return to full basketball activity in 4 to 6 weeks. Now, what's different is the Hornets during the regular season can't hide behind there being no basketball games, where it might even take longer than what the initial diagnosis is for him to return. So in the offseason, you can, who knows if everything is going swimmingly, because they're not going to be taking a whole bunch of questions from media. Nobody's going to be going up to the podium. We might not know until we resume basketball activities. We'll probably know it around the draft. Jeff Peterson will have media availability. So will Charles Lee to some extent. So I'm sure a LaMelo question hopefully will be asked there. I'll have some power, I believe. I can't imagine I'll miss some of that media availability. So we'll see. But 4 to 6 weeks, Doug, what's your take on the update?
Yeah, 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, that would be probably the amount of time that he would take normally to just decompress from the season and take a vacation or whatever. That's what players normally do if they're not heading to the postseason. So, I mean, again, unless there is a setback, I can't wait for the press release that this has been a successful procedure, just like we get successful surgeries all the time.
Well, I mean, I guess that's kind of what they did, right? They didn't say it, but yeah, successful procedure.
Well, if they didn't say it.
That's true. You know, you make fun of the text or the update that it's a successful surgery until you don't get it. So you know what? I apologize. I'm sorry for making fun of it, but now I do want it was successful. I do want that update regarding any player you talk about.
But he gets a full off season, right? That's the takeaway from this, that he gets a full off season to not only get healthy, but, I think work on some of the things that he's going to continue to work on from last off season. Whether it's trying to draw more fouls, looking at more tape, trying to get these referees to respect him, from, figuring out what kind of player the Hornets want him to be, what kind of player he wants to be, what kind of player the Hornets need him to be. Maybe some of that is going to be informed by who they end up drafting. But all of this conversation about, does he need to be a pass first point guard? Does he need to score 50 points? Does he need to try to go for 40 and put up, 15 threes a game? I would say probably not. But, I think a lot of that stuff has to be worked out. And his jump shot was not going in as much as I think he would like, as much as the team would certainly like, as much as we would like. So maybe he can get all of that stuff worked out in the offseason, and he gets to just come back strong and, try to make an all-star push that can't be disrupted by, crotchety media members. And
his own health, which hopefully he's able to play more than the 65 games needed to be eligible for some of these end of season awards, and then he plays well enough to also be eligible that way for some of these end of season awards. You mentioned the full off season. I think that's obviously important for LaMelo as an individual. It's also important to the team because it helps build chemistry. Think about all of the off seasons that we've had players experience where they haven't been healthy the entire way. Even Mark Williams, you almost get to the end of the offseason, then he goes down with a foot injury that's broken. I forget who our guy was that broke it on Hornets Reddit. I hope you show yourself in the comments somewhere. But it was some dude on Hornets Reddit. I just saw Mark Williams walk out of the hospital with a boot on, and then the next day it's Mark Williams had a foot injury, and we'll see when he comes back. So hopefully there's none of that going on, and everybody develops chemistry with one another. You know who you're going to have going into the regular season, after free agency, after the draft. Everybody builds chemistry with one another. That's a big deal. So I'm glad LaMelo, according to this, will be healthy well before we'll really start ramping up things for the following year. So we'll see. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Another mock draft, another sicko satchel question. We got plenty more to get to. One more segment to go. LOH. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings time, it sneaks up on us all the time. It snuck up on me again. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power you through. Whether you're staying up late watching tournament games, squeezing in a round of golf after work.
Tornado warnings, that's my problem right now. Good golly, I'm tired.
2:45 a.m. your time? That's
2:45 a.m. tornado warnings that lasted until 4 a.m. So I need 2:45, 4 a.m. I need 5 Hour Energy.
Yeah, you do need a 5 Hour Energy. It gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it, and it will help you out not only during tornado warnings, but also those tournament games I'm talking about. Basketball Madness, you could be staying up late for those, but also with the extra daylight, the extra activities, on-the-go convenience too. That's important. Whether you're at a game or you're traveling, 5 Hour Energy is easy to grab, and it keeps you feeling refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. If you need one now, grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Doug, you are the keeper of both of these things. You are responsible for the mock draft. You are responsible for the Sicko Satchel. It's your world. Where do you want to start the third segment?
Schumann in the Sicko Satchel asks this: now that baseball is back in full swing, when the draft and offseason is done this summer, what inning would you say this team is at? Remember, famously we heard from, I don't know if it was Gabe Plotkin or Rick Schnall, one of those fellas, Schlotkin, saying that the team, in an interview on the Hornets team podcast, saying that the Hornets were in the second inning of a 9-inning ball game. So still early in their rebuild process. So Schumann wants to know what inning they're going to be when they're done with this summer. He goes on to write, I don't know how much longer I can watch this. I'm guessing 2027 is going to be, quote, our year.
So a couple things to answer the question directly before I go off on a tangent. I think it's really hard to decide because I don't know what they're going to do with their core. So depending on what they do with LaMelo, is it possible to go back an inning? I know it's not in real baseball, but perhaps it's just still the second inning and there's a whole bunch of runs hit by the other team.
I think we're in a rain delay. What do you think about that? I think the tarps are coming out and we're all waiting on the umpires or the powers that be, in this case, Schlotkin and Jeff Peterson. We're just waiting on them. Like, what do you want to do? Because this was supposed to be a season of evaluation. And once again, you were tripped up by injury after injury. And so are you really going to allow yourself another season of evaluation of this young core at the expense of, I think, fans, the few, the proud, the sickest of us all who are still sticking around for this? How much can you put them through? David wrote something for Every Hornets box score that I thought was poignant on the tank losses, the ethical losses, whatever you want to call them. The problem with all of this is that if the Hornets go into the draft lottery and they fall back, it's just soul crushing because you know what you just put yourself through. And then it's not just about not getting Cooper Flagg, although that's a part of it. But the Hornets, historically as a franchise, have just been littered with moments where they've gone through this trauma, and then to come out in the draft and just be one pick away from completely changing the franchise. This has just happened too much to fans, and I'm just not sure how much they can take. So I'm with Schumann here. Like, I don't know how much longer people can be expected to hang on. And if you're the ownership group and you're asking people to pay more for season tickets and you're asking people to support the team through this building of a practice facility and all this stuff that they won't even really honestly be able to take advantage of, like, you've got to provide them with something. You've got to go out there and get something, add something to this roster that you can sell. Because I don't think you can't sell this young core anymore. If they go out and try to sell this young core, it's like It's just like repackaging the same gift over and over every year and handing it to someone. And you try to repackage it, but the packaging is, once you open something for the first time and you try to repackage it, it's never the same. And every time you do that, the stuff just, the packaging starts to yellow, it starts to curl up on the ends, and you just keep giving it to someone, and eventually someone's like, enough, this is garbage. I can't do this anymore.
So it all depends on what you do with LaMelo more than any other player. If you move on from Miles Bridges, that's not moving you back. That's not putting you in a rain delay. You can move forward with Miles Bridges being gone. If you move forward and LaMelo's not on the roster, now you've gotten rid of your only all-star on the team. It's a big deal. You're still in the rain delay.
We don't have any all-stars on this team.
If Mitch Kupchak, if we have to play that soundbite again, we can't play it now. You do. You have an all-star. He did it. There's a star next to that second season on his basketball reference page. So you have an all-star. If you get rid of that guy, now you're still in the second inning, or you're in a rain delay, however you want to slice it. So if you get rid of LaMelo, and whether that means Cooper Flagg or not, then still you might be hanging around here in this space for a while. You made a couple of points that I want to touch on here too. I'll tell you this, man. I feel like I've got a pretty good pulse on Hornets Nation, whether it be Twitter, whether it be the text line, whether it be people I talk to when I go to the Spectrum Center, whether it's people that DM me, whatever, right? I got a pretty good pulse on it. They're as checked out as I've ever seen before. That's a fact. That's a fact. Because it's been too much pain, and you have different people operating on different timelines. The people I'm talking about is the fan base, and it's the front office. And it's fair. The front office wants to come in. This is their first full season of basketball decision-making power. And so it's understandable that you want to come in and completely reset everything. Have a season of evaluation, draft your guy in the first round because you got time. You just got hired. So you can see if Tijan Salon makes it as an NBA player, whether it's a starter or a high-end role player or a star. You can see. You can have this play out for the next 3 years or so before you really start to feel some pressure and possibly be on the hot seat. But it doesn't make it any different for the Hornets fan base. They have been fed up with this for quite some time. And the thing that they're holding on to, I'm not kidding, it's Cooper Flagg. It's the number 1 overall pick. If you get the 2nd or the 3rd overall pick, then they can probably be mad about it for 24 hours after the ping pong balls fly around. And then they can talk themselves into it once it's Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey. But there's always going to be this, we went through this again and we don't get the prize. It's happened too many times. So I don't know how much that affects what they do. Probably not a whole lot. And logic tells me it shouldn't affect what they do in terms of the basketball decision-making process. It's new to them. I get it. But it's not new to the Hornets fan base. And they're as checked out as I've ever seen them. You can see it at the games. They know it. Jazz Monday, God almighty, the Utah Jazz game on a Monday where it's rainy outside, you could hear an echo in there. You could hear a flat-out echo, and if you couldn't, it's because some Jazz fans showed up in their Stockton jerseys. They got an issue. They got to fix this thing. So I don't know if it's a rain delay. I don't know if it's a second inning, but I hope we start getting through this baseball game quickly because it's been too long. All right, let's get through a mock draft. What you got?
Well, just an update on the standings, the reverse standings for the Hornets right now. They lost last night, and the Washington Wizards, they won a game against the Sacramento Kings. Leave it to the Kings to drop one to one of the tanking teams.
Yes, God.
And I don't know how many more opportunities the Wizards are going to get to win. I would say probably not very many. So the Hornets right now 2 games back of the Wizards. I don't know how tiebreakers would work in this situation, but I assume because the Hornets have lost to the Wizards 4 times this season, that if they ended the season tied, that they would get the second pick or the second pick odds.
Well, so shout out to Evan Hale. I did his podcast yesterday. I followed your footsteps. I hopped on the Super Hornet pod with Evan. But awesome. Evan, I think I saw Evan tweet out when someone asked me this. He responded. So he's doing my work for me. Shout out again to Evan. That it goes up to a coin flip. And then I remembered, yes, this happened between the Hornets and the Trailblazers. So when the Hornets and the Trailblazers were tied in the odds, there was a coin flip, and then the Hornets won.
That's such BS.
The Hornets won, though. We won the coin flip. Yeah,
but it's BS, saying. And you know why? Yeah. Because the Hornets earned it by losing to the Washington Wizards 4 times. That's earning it. It should be a reverse head-to-head. If you lose to the team 4 times, then you should get the right to the odds for the second overall pick. But fine, it comes down to a coin flip. I don't even think it's going to come down to that. I think the Hornets are going to stay right where they are in 3 because I think New Orleans lost as well. but they're fine. They're clear of New Orleans. I think they're going to stay right at 3, which is where the latest mock draft from Kevin O'Conman of Yahoo.com, their NBA senior analyst, has the Hornets slotted at 3. Cooper Flagg goes 1, Dylan Harper goes 2, and at 3, the Charlotte Hornets select Ace Bailey, the forward from Rutgers. So a deviation from the past few mock drafts that we've done that had the Hornets at 3, taking VJ Edgecombe over Ace Bailey. Kevin O'Conman writes, Bailey is a ridiculous shot-making machine capable of splashing contested jumpers from every spot on the floor with the swagger of a throwback bucket getter. Placing him alongside LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller would create an absurd scoring trio, but would it lead to winning basketball? Question mark.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point. If you don't think it leads to winning basketball, then maybe you just make a different choice. So Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, it seems like it's going to be that debate, right? I mean, if you have, I think you have, again, I keep saying LaMelo number 1. I've done that 2 days in a row now. You have Cooper Flagg number 1. You have Dylan Harper number 2. And then it seems like the VJ Ace debate right now at 3 or 4. That's a question. Do you think anybody else can get in that top 4 discussion, Doug? For the Hornets, or maybe even anybody else, do you think Derek Queen, people could be infatuated with his offense? I don't think so either. I don't think it could be Knipple. Your boy, Trey Johnson. What about Trey Johnson? Could he get in the top 4 discussion?
Maybe. I think there are a couple of guys that could go and impress in workouts and impress in interviews. I think Trey Johnson is one. I would say Jockey Jonas is another one that I think Kasparis, I think, can jump in there. But yeah, I agree. I don't think Derek Queen is going to do it. But those will be the 2 guys. He also, Kevin, has the Hornets in round 2, where the Hornets have back-to-back picks. He's got them taking Bennett Sturtz, a favorite of this tournament, and Alex Condon.
Alex Condon. He's Condon. He's from Florida. Yeah.
So Condon. All right, Alex Condon from Florida.
I'm still trying to get some information on the coin flip of it all. Like I wonder if this situation is different than what the Hornets and the Trailblazers were in last year. So somebody smarter than me is going to have to look that up, but I'm not sure what the tiebreaker is. Hopefully the Hornets get it no matter what the tiebreaker would be between them and whatever other team, or if there's a tiebreaker to go through. So then they get to figure out who they'll draft in the top 4 and hopefully top 1. It's not going to be that difficult of a decision. All right, that'll do it. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. Make sure you check out Locked On NBA. Also, Doug is hosting it alongside Matt Moore and Hayes. That is a stank face, Doug. We'll get to your stank face real quickly before we end the show.
I'm looking at this Condon guy, and they're saying, concerns. He's 6'11", 230, and the concerns are jump shot. 31% on his three-pointers, mechanics stiff, 63.8% on his free throws. I say, no thank you.
Okay, completely out on Condon. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
Condon, I'm con off.
Nipple?